Welcome to the next episode of Every Citizen Armed. Today we're going to be joined by Matt Johnson, chairman of the CRPA. And what I'd like you is kind of explain to folks, tell folks what that is.
Yeah, so again, I'm the chairperson or chairman of a local chapter of the CRPA. The CRPA is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. It's been advocating for the rights of all Californians since 1875.
Now, CRPA, acronym
stands for California Rifle and Pistol Association. And for those of you that are not neophytes in the Second Amendment world, perhaps you've heard of the NYSRPA or the Bruin decision. That is the equivalent of the CRPA in New York, and each of the different states has an NRA-affiliated organization. And the CRPA, or California Rifle and Pistol Association, is for California. And I've been the chairman of our local chapter for a little over 2 years, September of 2022. And we're all volunteers here locally. We do our best to keep our local, those that come to our meetings, keep them informed.
Every citizen armed ensures that every American patriot is prepped with knowledge, perspective, and firepower.
He counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.
Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
And now you're local, but you're local up Tulare County? Would that be?
Yes. So our chapter is called Tulare-Kings Gun Owners. And so we're on Facebook and Instagram, Tulare-Kings Gun Owners. We decided when we created our group that we would bring in Kings County because it's a smaller county, but also they have wonderful gun ranges out there and a lot of gun stores that they're all affiliated with the CRPA and have been for years. And so wanted to be inclusive. And instead of having, two smaller groups, just have one larger group. So we meet in different locations kind of throughout Kings County and 2 different locations in Tulare County. So we bring everybody in.
One of the things you mentioned at the beginning there, you're a volunteer. So everybody that does this is going to be a volunteer.
I'm basically a volunteer. And having said that, disclaimer, I volunteer. I'm a member of the CRPA, just like anyone else that carries a card-carrying member of the CRPA, but I'm not like on their payroll. So my opinions are going to be my own. And I, legally can't speak on their behalf or state any official policy positions, unless, of course, they've already said it and it's out there on YouTube or whatnot. But I'll do my best to share what it's like being a volunteer with the CRPA and just make the organization proud. They're wonderful people that run that group. It really is all the chapters, if you think, there are about 40 of them throughout the state, and they've been running since about 2019.
Okay, so there are 40, and there's 58 counties, I think.
58 counties, yeah. So there are quite a few counties that are still underrepresented, and also there are some counties that are rather massive, like the Bay Area counties and ones in Los Angeles. So there might be more than one chapter in a particular county because the counties are so big.
Yeah, so you're picking up for 2 counties there, so that kind of works out. Now, but
yes, we are.
Now I'm down here in Kern County, and we got to work on this one, getting this one rolling again.
Yeah, the Kern County chapter predates ours. It was in existence as of, I think, about 2020, 2021. But due to some complications, life gets busy sometimes and difficult. And if you can't get volunteers to run the group, then the group kind of goes by the wayside. But there are people here that I think if you led the charge, or if you know someone who would lead the charge here in Kern County, I'm sure the CRPA headquarters would be thrilled to see the Kern County group up and running again.
I think we can work on that one. So when people think about the CRPA, their main goal, their main objective, when you look at that, is going to be really for the advancement of Second Amendment rights or protecting the Second Amendment rights. Would that be correct?
True. The CRPA has its primary mission is to, I guess I'll state it in simplest terms, they want to keep bad bills from becoming bad gun laws, and then they want to fight the bad gun laws in court. So there's the legislative end, which is prevention, and there's the litigative end, to litigation, when we have to call the lawyers, which is that's on the correction side of things. We try to bring things back to where they were. So we're protecting the Second Amendment. We're trying to restore the Second Amendment. But the CRP is also heavily involved in education, advocacy, gun ranges, children's competitive shooting, like pretty much anywhere in the state where you have high school or junior high level kids that are competitively shooting, the CRPA is involved in some degree. So they have their hands on a lot of different things just throughout the state.
One of the things going through the website is that I saw you actually had CCW Safe, I think, is one of the big sponsors.
Yes.
Did you see that? I mean, that's...
Yeah, CCW Safe. There's so many groups out there that do provide, quote unquote, CCW insurance. But yeah, CCW Safe is recently, within the last 6 to 9 months, came on board as a sponsor of the CRPA. So
I think in California, that's where we're at. Of course, that's going to be very important to, if you're going to have that gun for protection, you actually have to use it. you're going to get sued.
Yeah, it's what I've heard other people say is, you pull the trigger, you're responsible for wherever that bullet ends up. You're legally responsible for any actions that you take. Even if you have to brandish a firearm in a threatening way to diffuse a bad situation, even if a shot's never fired, yeah, you do want to have representation. So yeah, CCW Safe is a sponsor of the CRPA. I've carried since 2018, and they happen to be the insurance that I use, and I've never carried a day without it. But I was not paid to say that. I'm just saying, as a matter of fact, I subscribe to CCW Safe.
No, like I said, we're not getting paid to promote those. They're not a sponsor of this show either. But I think it's the idea of a group like that that's going to help protect the Second Amendment, the CCW carries. Yeah, it's what do they call it? A personal liability insurance, I think is how that's worded out.
Yeah, there are two sides of it. There's the legal side and the civil side, or the not legal side.
Judicial.
Basically, if the DA does, the criminal side and the civil side. If the DA decides to prosecute, you've got protection there. And then if you do have to take someone's life or someone's injured, and even if you were completely justified in the eyes of the DA, oh, you injured my so-and-so, or now this guy who robbed you, he can't support us anymore, so we're suing you. So that's the civil side of things where you can get protection there. You need it for both, because people don't think about the civil side. They think about, I need to stay out of jail.
Right.
Well, congratulations, but you're still going to get sued.
Right. Yeah. I think that's very, and same thing. We've carried it for a long time. I'm not with CCW Safe, but we definitely have carried the insurance.
It's important.
One of the things that I've noticed is when you look at that, and I think people need to understand, you get the organization is really helping keep the lawsuit, for fighting some of these lawsuits. When we're seeing these crazy laws come on the books, whether it be, what was this, James versus Maduros, that was the newest Governor Newsom.
That's one of the newest
brilliancy.
Ones. Yeah, James versus Maduros. We have Melissa Hurtado to thank for that. If those of you that are in the Central Valley, if Melissa Hurtado is your state senator, she cast the deciding vote for, at the time, AB 28. According to eyewitnesses who watched her walking down the hall of the Capitol, they said, "Hey, are we good, Melissa?" And she's still back, "Yeah, we're good," meaning that she was going to continue to oppose it as she had pledged she would. But then she turned coat at the very end on the floor and gave this big grandiose speech about how we needed this AB 28 to fund gun control. And her fellow Democrats, the ones that were aligned with opposition to this bill, were shocked. They're like, what is she doing? So the voters, the following March, repaid her for that at the primary. So she'll term out in 2026, I believe.
Oh, good.
Yes, but that's the 11% tax. And that is, so I help run the chapter, and we have relationships with over 20 what are called business affiliates. And there are hundreds of business affiliates all throughout the state, like Turner's, mom and pop hardware stores, anywhere. They don't necessarily, like gun ranges. They don't have to sell guns, but they're just businesses owned by Second Amendment-minded people. And it's totally free. We want to encourage all businesses to affiliate themselves with whatever local CRP chapters in our county. And for us, we have about 22 of them in Exeter, Tulare, Visalia, and in Hanford, and even Lemoore, because Kings County goes all the way there. But that's been the number one thing. Hey, Matt, what's going on with the 11% tax? Hey, Matt, because I got an email a couple weeks ago, just before the end of the quarter, saying, hey, I'm just about to send a huge payment off to the state. Do we have any new developments in this case? Sometimes the store owners come to me, so then I pull out my phone and I call people or I email people or I go online and say, no. So I rely on the CRPA. I want to put a shout out to CRPA TV. If you are at all Second Amendment minded and you want to see what the CRPA is about, go to YouTube, subscribe to their channel. They keep us up to date on all the latest. But with regard to the 11% tax, it's still there. And as they explained in a recent video, this is an interesting lawsuit because normally the lawsuits are V. Bonta, and prior to that, V. Becerra, and prior to that, V. Harris. It's against the district attorney, right? But this case is being brought against the Department of Commerce or the Treasury. It's a different department. Whoever handles the intake of taxes, It's different. The state was very sneaky in doing it this way. It's going to make it harder to fight, but we're not without hope.
Kind of the way they ran the Affordable Care Act through. Let's run that through as a tax and not as, that's how they were able to get it through the Supreme Court. Yeah. So it's kind of the same aspect in a way.
Yeah.
No, and I think that when I look at that particular case, and I've talked to some other guests about it in the past, I think that really hurts people's ability to get out and protect themselves.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I purchased a firearm recently, and it cost me an additional like $88. And I'm going, you know what? I had that $88, but what if I didn't? What if I needed? I'll come back next month and buy the gun next month. And what if I needed the gun in 10 days? You never know.
Right. And I think it hurts their ability to go out and buy more ammunition because it's not just the gun.
Yep.
It's the ammunition. And if you're going to own a gun, you need to be out there practicing. It's about responsible gun ownership. So it's had such other steps that are involved that really.
And what the state doesn't realize is ever since the Pittman-Robertson Act, which was, that dates back to the 1920s or even before then, that gun owners over 100 years ago, that was a self-imposed tax. Gun owners say, hey, all the hunters say, hey, we're going to gladly assume this tax on ourselves, and then that money helps to preserve wildlife. That's when you hear certain members of our society saying hunting is evil and hunting is bad and we got to end hunting. Say, hold on. # hunting is conservation. Without hunting and hunters, goodbye to your wetlands, goodbye to a lot of these places that are used to preserve wildlife habitats, the money, billions of dollars a year, come from hunters. So we already have that tax. Every can of ammo, every bullet you buy, every gun you buy, you're paying Pittman-Robertson. Then you got sales tax. So this 11% tax it means that you're paying upwards of like 30%. I mean, it's insane.
The fact that, like you said, their hunters actually really push that in. And the hunters are true conservationists. It's like saying the farmers or the ranchers or this or that. But really the hunters are the ones out there. If you didn't have hunting and you had deer, elk, whatever, going, just running wild, you're going to end up like we have out there in Arizona or Nevada with the wild horses. We all love a wild Mustang. There's not enough food for them. Well, you're going to run into the same problem.
I know, and that's been a fascinating thing because I love, I go to the gym, I put on my podcast, and Rick Travis, who is he's the legal chairperson. He basically runs all the legal side of things at the CRPA. So he's the legislative analyst. Basically, he is our connection to everything going on in Sacramento. So he's the one there along with Sam Paredes from Gun Owners of California. They work together to keep bad bills from becoming bad laws. And he is a hunter. I've never gone hunting. Disclaimer, I didn't get into guns until 2014. I've never hunted. The only thing I've ever shot is steel, paper, watermelons. I don't know if I could ever even shoot like a squirrel. I'm just too. It's kind of fun. I carry a gun for self-defense, but don't shoot Bambi. No, I have no problem at all with hunting. Personally, I think I 100% support it. And those that do, great. Go for it. But it's just not in my nature. But Rick Travis talks about the issues and how years ago you could hunt black bear, you could hunt mountain lions. There are certain animals that you could hunt in California legally, but then he said you had lawmakers from urban areas who didn't understand the issues, who went to Sacramento and passed and changed the law, and so now California basically is unable to sustain the population. We have too many bears coming into people's homes, too many deer getting hit by cars, thousands of deer getting hit by cars, too many bobcats, too many coyotes. Because California lawmakers know better than all of us. They know so much better than us. Our balance of nature is now thrown off. And that's something I don't hear anyone talking about that. I learned that from the CRPA because they're connected to hunting. They are a hunter's best friend.
And I listen to, of course, numerous podcasts, and it's the same aspect. I wish people would really understand that. I was driving across the 299 a while back, and I made the mistake of going at dusk, which is not the great time to be driving through the mountains. And of course, I come across numerous deer running up in that area, and it's they could do so much damage if you're not controlling the population.
And it's true. It's there's a term for it. I forget, but it was basically like with the amount of people that are living in California, how many resources we have, there's a certain fixed number in the tens of thousands that we can basically sustain. It's all about sustainability. And those wildlife populations have exploded because it's kind of like the analogy would be back in the day, Smokey Bear, don't start, you can prevent wildfires. Well, if you take Smokey the Bear and you take it to its extreme, the forest must never burn in any way, ever, ever, ever. Well, then we have mismanagement and all that undergrowth grows out of control. And then we have fires that are not natural annual occurrences, but these huge apocalyptic conflagrations that were caused by humans. If we had let things burn every year, as it's been happening for millions of years, it wouldn't be a big deal. Same thing here. We've let wildlife populations explode because, hunting is bad. Well, you know what else is bad? Deer getting hit by cars.
Yeah. Black
bear breaking into people's homes and causing damage. And then bears having to be euthanized because they become overly dependent on people when they should, it's just things are out of balance. And it's what lawmakers. One example in many ways and how the lawmakers in Sacramento they had good intentions, but we all know the road to hell is paved with good intentions, right?
Yeah.
But again, I'm not a hunter, so I learned this by listening to Rick Travis, and it's just a way to, if you want to get tied into what the CRPA is doing, there are multiple ways of staying informed.
Now, the CRPA is also really a big proponent of the national reciprocity, having it to where you could carry your firearm. If you have a CCW in one place, it's going to be across the nation. Are you how is your knowledgeable on that one?
The current case that's most applicable is the CRPA versus City of Los Angeles, which was brought because people were having to wait. I guess in California state law, the state law says you should be able to get a response to your permit within, was it 6 months, 3 months? There's actually, it's in the statute, but in LA, people were waiting a year and a half, 2 years. And because of that unreasonably long amount of time people had to wait, that's why the CRPA filed a lawsuit. But when Bruin passed, the CRPA sent out the 58 counties, right? The CRPA sent out not 58 letters because, Tulare County is good. We know Kern County is good here. But they sent out letters to all the counties saying, okay, sheriffs, we have NYS, we have the New York versus New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin decision. We need to get our act together or we're going to sue you. And most counties got their act together. LA did not. And so people are having to wait all this time. And so there was a recent ruling in that case, the CRPA versus LA. Again, I don't know the exact name of the plaintiff. I don't think the CRPA it could be the plaintiff. I'm not certain.
I think that's what it's listed as on the site is.
Thank you. That they ruled that California might be forced to begin recognizing out-of-state permits. So if you live in Arizona, have an Arizona permit, which costs you $100 and it's good for 5 years or whatever, right? I have one for Utah. It's good for 5 years. Then you can drive into California and work your job in California and carry. And certainly the CRPA would be excited to hear that people with permits elsewhere could come to California and not have to worry about that.
I have heard that LA County is issuing a lot more.
They are.
I mean, where their numbers were considerably up, even though they're taking a long time.
They don't have enough staff, I guess. I don't, or the funding isn't there. I mean, if they're cutting the firefighters by the tens of millions, do you think they're in a huge rush to fund people to get concealed carry permits? Yeah. Probably not.
No, but they are setting some records on numbers, but it may be a high quantity, but in all reality, when you run the population, it's not that many.
No, the ratio is not good. I mean, you've got tens of thousands of people in Tulare County that have permits, and I'm one of them. I've carried for 9 years, but at LA, I'm sure we outnumber them. There's a massive county.
Yeah, I think Kern County and Tulare County both are some of the highest numbers. I know Donnie Youngblood was on here a while back, and he's a strong supporter. Yeah, and so is Mike Boudreau.
Oh, for sure. We love Mike Boudreau. It was kind of it was tough because it's like people are voting for him, but then he has to leave. But we love Mike Boudreau. We don't want to lose him. He wasn't I was in a different district, so it wasn't even a choice for me. Going back to the national reciprocity issue, that solves one problem. That solves the problem of people coming into California and being able to carry. People from Nevada, wherever. But it doesn't solve the problem of, okay, let's say I want my California permit and I'm going to go to Arizona or I'm going to go to Michigan or wherever. Mm-hmm. I still have to get my California permit. Now in Tulare, I'm lucky. It took me 6 months initially to get my permit, and they've got it much faster now. They've really got it going pretty fast. And renewals take under a week. Kings County, you're in and out in the same day. They're so fast in Kings County. The thing is, you've got Santa Clara County where they're charging well over $1,000. So LA, they're making you wait 2 years. Santa Clara County, they're charging you well over $1,000 to get your initial. I think the renewal was $500 to $600 or even more. So you still have to get the permit in order to take it with you to Michigan or take it with you to Florida. So it solves one problem, not the first problem.
Well, and you look at that, and it goes back to my thought about the 11%. Who does that really hurt? It's not going to hurt the people that can afford it, but that single mother who wants to protect her kids, or a lower income folks that really might happen to live in a neighborhood where they need to protect themselves.
Yeah,
it's such an injustice.
It's taxing a constitutional right. I mean, we had poll taxes before. We had all kinds of things set up so that certain people would not be able to vote, and it was awful, and it was thrown out years ago, rightly so, by the Supreme Court. And now, what Clarence Thomas has said, the Second Amendment is not a second-class right. Well, guess what? Gun owners are not second-class citizens. And so often we feel that way. Like right now, you can't, in California, you cannot legally carry in a zoo, can't legally carry in a park or any state park. You can't legally carry in any restaurant that serves alcohol. So from one day, it was legal to carry when you went out to TGI Fridays, and then the very next day, because of the Ninth Circuit, or as we lovingly call them, the Ninth Circus.
Yeah. That's appropriate.
Because of that, now you can't, at least not legally.
And we're recording this today. This will be released, in a couple weeks. So today is actually a pretty special day. And
today is a special day.
Yeah.
Tell us all about it, Chuck.
Today, January 20th, we can see a lot of changes, hopefully, after today. And this is one that President Trump has talked about. So I think there's a big factor there. I don't know how that would work for him to get it pushed through, but I hope he does.
I hope so too, because other than the bump stock ban, which was definitely firearms related, but did nothing good for anyone, I don't know if President Trump did anything Second Amendment wise during his first term. Not even like reversing the prohibition against having a gun in your car when you're in the post office parking lot. I mean, that's.
I think in his first term, he was just really busy.
He was busy trying to figure out the job.
Well, yeah, I get it. You don't know your job, and Lord knows he was getting attacked from every single angle.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody start a new job, you know what the hell you're doing.
No.
Yeah, and to have people just throwing darts at you nonstop.
I know.
I'm really curious to see. So yeah, I am very excited.
Our expectations are high.
Yeah, they really are. And he started. I mean, he signed 200, executive orders, which I have personal issues with that many executive orders, but at least this time I think it's going to benefit us.
I certainly hope so. I certainly do hope so. I know that the two big things are the Hearing Protection Act, which would legalize. I shouldn't say legalize. It would remove suppressors from the NFA list. So instead of having to go through the NFA and paying that dreaded $200 tax, which is not a big deal, back in 1938, $200 was like $4,000 now.
Exactly.
So that was it's funny because it's like codified $200, which brings it back to the CCW thing. If we did some kind of national reciprocity, if we said, hey, because we got a good ruling against Santa Clara County for charging thousands for a permit,
right? Do
we codify a permit can cost no more than X dollars? Is it going to say $200? Well, 50 years from now, $200 is going to be, pocket change, right? Because of inflation. But anyway, going back to the, you were talking about Trump, the carry permit. What were we?
Yeah, exactly. He's going to get that, hopefully get that pushed through.
Yes, the Hearing Protection Act, getting suppressors off of the NFA list, which we'd hope would then preclude California, because California outright bans any NFA items. The SBRs, fully automatic type things, But if those are taken off the list, I mean, I don't know. Hopefully that would allow Californians to be able to, because doctors are coming out and saying, hey, it's a good idea. But the type of opposition we're going to experience, what Congress is going to, because they have to, the House will pass it. It's the Senate. You got to get the 60 votes. So what Republicans have, how many votes do they have?
I think we're at 53, 54.
So they're going to need 7 Democrats. Now remember back to that terrible Las Vegas shooting that I referred to. Hillary Clinton went on Twitter that day, and she said something to the effect of, could you imagine how much worse it would have been if he had had a silencer? No one would have heard where the guns are coming from. And all of us gun people were like, oh my God, really? I'm in California. I've never been around suppressed fire, but I've seen videos of it. You can still hear the firearm. It's
not like the movies.
It's not, no, yeah. The guy was shooting like 308s. You're going to hear a 308 that's suppressed.
We actually had that big discussion on the previous podcast that actually be released in a few days here. And that was a big discussion, was the fact that these suppressors really help people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good for hunting, but it's good for you when you're out practice target shooting. Mm-hmm. It's good. It's going to protect your ears. It's going to protect. It does not. It's not a silencer. It's a suppressor.
Yeah, and if you ever had to discharge your firearm in your home against a home invasion, like if you have a justifiable reason to discharge your firearm, good luck with your hearing. If you've got tile floors and you could imagine that would be far worse than if you're outdoors. Yeah, so a suppressor is good for, but there are going to be political forces that are. And of course, what happened recently with that healthcare CEO that was assassinated, was it a homemade silencer? A homemade suppressor? That's going to come up. Criminals are going to use it. Well, you know what? Criminals are going to make silencers out of like soup cans and whatever they can. But legally, it'd be nice to be able to own one.
Yes, no, absolutely. It's like I said, if for no other reason, for the hunting and the protecting of the ears, but at the same time, like I said, we're all out there shooting. We're going to be doing things. Yeah, we wear ear protection, we wear eye protection, but there's times you can't. There's times, like I said, that's a great point about shooting it in your home, and that could happen.
It very well could. And I've got tile floors. I would shudder that first shot. I think you'd be more in shock than the other person.
Yeah,
it'd be loud.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be when you're out in the wild and you're hunting, you don't want to wear ear protection. So a lot of hunters don't, because really you want to hear what's going on around you. You're out hunting, you don't hear that grizzly coming up behind you. That may be worst case scenario, but if you're able to have suppressors, you don't necessarily have to have that ear protection. It's going to save your ass a little.
I heard something fascinating about grizzlies when I was on a school trip a couple of years ago. The grizzlies, when they roamed freely in California, were not. So black bears climb trees.
Yes.
Grizzlies do not. Black bears live in the mountains. Grizzly bears did not. Grizzly bears were more commonly found here in the valley. They were on flatland. So if grizzlies were truly restored to their quote unquote natural habitat, they'd be down here. So there's no way. I mean, if they put grizzlies up in the mountains, I mean, that's just humans messing things up. I don't think that's going to work.
And the reason that natural habitat isn't always the best thing, because, we use where you live. If that turned back to the natural habitat, you'd probably be under about, 30 feet of water.
Yeah, mycelia would.
They don't if people don't know, Tulare Lake was the largest freshwater lake this side of the Mississippi.
Huge.
And that was all underwater.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean, that whole, all of Visalia, Tulare, that's all a natural floodplain. That's an alluvial plain that it wants to flood. The Kauai River used to go all the way through, to the Delta, but it didn't just land in the ocean like the Carmel or other rivers that just hit the ocean. This water went somewhere, and we live in that area now.
This episode today is brought to you by Branded Feed and Farm Supply over at 4328 Rosedale Highway. They're a locally owned business. This is where you can get your dog food, your horse feed, your chicken feed, pretty much anything you're going to need for your animals. But at the same time, you could go in there and get all kinds of knowledge. Seth and the gang, they really know what they're talking about. They're very helpful. And really, in going in there, you're supporting a local business. These folks have done a great job over the years. I've worked with them. I've had a great time. They're a lot of fun. And like I said, you can learn a lot just by going in there. Ask the questions. So appreciate it. Support them. They're helping support us. We want to move them forward in this also. Thank you. Branded Feed and Farm Supply. Be sure to support the local business. Now, actually, you kind of have an interesting background to be this involved into it. I would say you're almost an anomaly in some ways, being if we talk about you're a school teacher.
I am a school teacher, have been going on 26 years, and taught my first 7 years up in the Sacramento area, and probably was one of very few conservatives. I think I've always been conservative, but not in terms of firearms. I've definitely gone through a journey of education and going from living in a household where it's kind of a funny story. My grandfather, my mom's father, he served in World War II, Arizona National Guard. He fought against the Japanese in the Philippines, North Papua New Guinea, Australia, and then his own son, my uncle, became a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War. And then my mom and my dad get together, and right around the time he got drafted, he becomes a conscientious objector. So we had Colonel Miller, my grandfather, this legacy of military and conquest. It's the wrong word. Conquering your enemies, beating Hitler, beating the Japanese Empire, those things. Back when war was, Vietnam was a different animal. It wasn't like a righteous war. So there was a lot of opposition. But my dad was a CO based on religious grounds, spiritual grounds. He just didn't want to harm anyone. It's a funny story. Is his dad. So this is my other grandpa during World War II was drafted. My grandfather was quite a marksman. He was from Idaho, so he could hit those varmints and stuff, My dad told stories that he and my two uncles growing up, they had a squirrel or something on the power lines. Oh, go get your father. Because when Grandpa got out there, one shot. He was the best shot in the family, just a sharpshooter. So back in the 40s when he's drafted, he's out there doing his basic training, firing range practice, and someone goes up to him and says, "Hey, I heard a rumor that you're being looked at for sniper school." And my grandpa is like, "Oh, okay." So then he started to miss every so often because he did not. I'm not saying that if you follow Jesus that taking a life is never justified. I'm not saying that. But my grandfather did not want to be a sniper. That was his moral decision to pretend that he wasn't as good a shot as he was. And then a sergeant decided, okay, soldier, time to swim. The boy's from Idaho. He'd never been in the ocean in his life. Throws him in a swimming pool, glub, 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 sinks to the bottom. Both of his eardrums rupture.
Oh, wow.
And for the next 60 years, the VA paid for hearing aids for my grandfather. So one grandfather serving career military, the other one medical discharge. But neither one ended up. There was no legacy of like firearms ownership that made its way down to me. When I was a kid, we didn't have water guns. I mean, guns were bad. Guns were evil. I'm 49. I grew up with Transformers. I couldn't have Megatron. Not allowed. We never had Shockwave. Not their guns. Never watched the A-Team. To this day, I've never seen one episode of the A-Team. Growing up, all those classic series. I watched Knight Rider, Blue Thunder, but I didn't watch the ones that had guns because guns were bad. I didn't shoot a gun until I was 11. I was at summer camp. It was just a 22, and the lady there trained us. It was just a bunch of summer camp kids, and she had us she just ingrained it in us. Just we got to be safe, keep the gun pointed down range, finger off the trigger. I learned that shooting a gun can be safe, and if it's safe, you can have fun. And that was when I was 11. Didn't touch a gun again until I was like 26. And then didn't become an firearms owner until I was like, I was 39. So, and I remember when my grandpa died in 2004, my dad said, hey, I found grandpa's old gun. It is an actual 1911.
Oh, wow.
Like it's the frame, the bottom part is a Springfield Armory from World War I, and the slide, Ithaca Gun Company slide. So for those of you listening, it's on sale for $20,000. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, this thing's a total rarity. They only made about 2,000 of them. But my dad had, this is after my grandpa passed in 2004. My dad handed it to me, and I had never touched a handgun. Oh, this is your grandpa's pistol. And I held it like I was holding like a snake. Like, what do I do with this thing? I didn't know how to rack the slide, check it. Everything I know now, I knew nothing.
Yeah.
Because I had no education. It's like, okay, Dad, I'm not really comfortable. I'm going to hand it back to you. I didn't shoot a handgun until I was 39. And so, grew up in a household that feared guns. But my mom still has never shot a gun, but she's 100% Second Amendment supporter. My dad and I love to go shooting.
Is that right?
My dad's got guns. Yeah, so
That's a little transition.
It's come
from where
full
she
circle.
was then.
Yeah, no, she's never shot a gun, but she understands. I think she's seen the world change and sees the value of having a gun in the household.
What would you attribute that to? Just watching it as everything's changed?
I think so. For me, my path to firearms ownership was because friends of ours decided to purchase a shotgun for home defense and a pistol because they had a friend who was mugged. Mm-hmm. And thankfully he was carrying, and that realized, okay, you might want to do that. So then when they shared that with my wife said, hey, I think we should look into getting a gun. Because at that point, I was the odd man out. My three buddies at that time that all had guns, they would get together. Oh, I've got a SIG, I've got a Glock, I've got this. They were talking German. It was all Greek to me. I didn't understand what any of it meant. And of course, now I know. And they love to, oh, Matt, remember when you didn't even have any guns? Now you got more guns than we do. Like I do, by far. I definitely have the most guns of my circle of friends. There was a flip that needed to be switched inside of me. And that switch was, hey, guns can be fun, but as long as you are, safe with them, you have to be safe.
I was not raised around guns.
Right.
At all.
Yeah, I know that.
We just weren't. And as I got older, and I think I was probably right around there when I bought my first gun. Mm-hmm. I owned a grocery store, and we're over in Lancaster, California. Pretty rough area. And we were took over that store, and we'd stopped a couple shoplifters. It was pretty brutal, and we were never gentle, but it was just a rough town, so you had to be. And one day I was talking to one of the sheriffs, and actually we had videotapes of folks who were coming in and his opinion to rob us. It was pretty apparent. They came in with their suits on, and it was just, if you saw the videos, like, oh, I see what that guy's doing. All four of them.
Yeah, case in the joint.
Oh, but see, we had just put cameras up the week prior, and maybe in just a couple days. And as they came in, they split up, and they start, oh, hey, there's cameras. And I could see them separate, come back, point at the camera, start talking. As soon as they walked in, we saw their odd. I went to the camera and highlighted them. So when they left, I'd taken pictures of them and got videos of their car and so forth and their license plate. And I called the LA County Sheriff, and he came over and he looked at it. We watched the video. And he said, oh, they're here to rob you. No doubt in my mind. He came over, looked at your safe. He did everything. We were like, that's what he was here to do. I said, oh, well, that's a little scary. I don't like that idea. And he says, do you carry a gun? And I said, no. And this probably would have been 2000, 2001, I guess. And I said, no, but I've been thinking about it. He's like, well, hell, if I was in this neighborhood, I'd carry a gun. And I said, well, I got to go get my license. He goes, no, you're a business owner. You can carry a gun anytime you want inside your store.
Right.
He said, this is your property. You have to do whatever you can do to protect your people, your property, and yourself inside your business. So that changed my perspective right then. And that's kind of where I started. I just bought a little 38 special type thing, a little snub nose. But it got me started. And I think that's where a lot of people just don't know. I didn't know until then.
Yeah, it was got into firearms out of a perception of need, that this was important for home defense and for personal defense. And so the first pistol I bought was a small subcompact. It's called. If you have any CZ fans out there, I like to say there are two types of gun owners in the world: those who own a CZ and those who haven't shot one yet. I love CZs. I swear by them. I own a bunch of them. But I bought the Rammy, which is now discontinued. But I bought it thinking, maybe someday I'll carry. And what do you know, a year and a half after I became a firearms owner, I was carrying. But so I bought that first handgun with that kind of in mind, Yeah, so we perceived that it was something that would just be smart. Not that, and I remember I've had a friend saying, well, Matt, if you feel like you live in a dangerous area, you should move somewhere else. I'm like, no. There are no dangerous areas and safe areas. I don't put on a gun when I'm going into a quote-unquote bad part of town. As long as it's legal for me to carry, I'm carrying everywhere I go.
Right.
Because the bad part of town has a way of ending up in your church, in the grocery store. I mean, the bad part of town is a person. It's not the town that's bad. It's the people that make those choices. And I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not a big guy. I don't know martial arts. I mean, it's all about disparity of force. If they come in exerting force over you, what are you going to do? I mean, obviously to run away, to defuse the situation, to talk them down, to do everything you possibly can not to use force. The last thing you want to do is to pull that gun out. It's the last thing you want to do.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think I listened to, Jocko Willink. He said, what you have for your best defense is your legs.
Yes.
Get away.
Just get away.
And he's one of the baddest guys on the planet.
Yeah.
And he can do whatever he wants.
The best gunfight's the one you never fight or something
exactly.
like that.
And he said, your first defense is your mouth. You either shut the hell up or talk yourself out of it. Next defense is you walk away, you get away. Your absolute last defense is bringing out your firearm.
Yeah.
But I think that's where there's a lot of misnomers on that. The people that own guns legally are not the ones committing the crimes.
No.
That's just, if you think about how many people own guns legally, if they were the bad people, there'd be a whole lot more going on.
Yeah, that's why SB2, which is now being fought in the CRPA case, May versus Bonta, is so infuriating because we've had carry in California for decades. Mm-hmm. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people carry, and all of a sudden, overnight, now it's a problem.
Yeah.
Now suddenly it's a problem. So, LA, San Francisco, all the big counties, they've big cities, oh no, people are going to carry here. Well, when's the last time you heard on the news, hey, a CCW holder gunned down a crowd of people? No, because that doesn't happen. I mean, what was the statistic? Is like an off-duty police officer is like 10 times as likely to commit an offense or a crime than a CCW holder. We're safer than, statistically speaking, than police officers.
Well, I think it helps keep you. You need to always be aware of your surroundings, and I think when you're carrying, a lot of times you will be a little more aware because you don't want to ever have to do that or get in a position where you have to. Keeps me out of situations because if I see something and I, this isn't good, I'll leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a good point. Like having a gun on your hip doesn't mean, okay, now that I have a gun on my hip, I can walk down this dark alley. It's like, I have a gun on my hip. Even if I don't have a gun on my hip, I don't want to walk down that dark alley. Right. I'm going to go the other way.
No, it just makes common sense, you would think. So, I mean, and we see that with a lot of the different laws that the CRPA is helping. I'm really curious to see. I would almost bet we're going to see one, maybe even two more Supreme Court justices appointed in the next 4 years.
Yeah, there's a possibility. I mean, I know Thomas, I'm sure he's pushing 80, isn't he? Is he already in his 80s? Maybe?
He's getting up. Yeah, he's pretty close.
He could retire and
he'll more than likely retire during this term. And I think hopefully there's one other one out there. I cannot, and I should know this.
The other three are Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson Brown, who's brand new. Kagan this morning when the 9 justices plus Stephen Breyer, who was
that's
retired.
Who I was thinking was Breyer.
Breyer's retired, but it was neat to have 10. He was because there were 3 surviving justices, and Breyer was walking in. That's a fascinating thing. Going back to the New York State and Rifle Pistol Association v. Bruin. I guess that's why they call it NYSERPA because it's too many syllables. Yeah. I listened to the hearing. I was in my car coming home, and I heard it on a podcast. I listened to the the oral arguments. And I actually took the time to read Breyer's dissent.
Oh.
Okay, here we have one of the most highest educated people in the country.
Supposed to be a constitutional expert.
Exactly. But he fell hook, line, and sinker for lies. In his dissent, it's written, you can look it up. His opening line was, guns are now the number one killer of children. That was that ridiculous half-truth that was parroted by all the gun control groups, which has made it into all the news broadcasts, all the TV shows. It's nonsense because they're including birth all the way to age 19. So you have 19-year-old and 18-year-old gang members killing each other. Right. And yet those are children. It's like, no. So it's just, and he fell for it. He read the press and believed it like everyone else. And here he is on the Supreme Court. I was very disappointed.
And I would imagine that there's a high number of those deaths that were being caused by whether it be underage gang members. Mm-hmm. And those guns aren't legal.
Yeah.
They weren't legal to start with. So let's take that out of the equation. Now let's see what the real numbers look like. Like I said, I raised my girls to learn how to shoot, but I've also taught them the responsibility.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor of it. And my thing is, and if you're going to have a gun, you need to get out and practice. You need to get out and shoot a little bit. You need to shoot every couple of weeks at least. And I think, what we've happened with Jamie V. Maduras, and out of that cost, that's going to make it harder for people to get out and practice and be responsible gun owners.
Yeah.
Now it's I always think back to that single mother. That's always one of my big factors. You're taking away somebody's ability to protect themselves. Mm-hmm. That's why I think having a group like CRPA out there really does help, because you are fighting these groups. You're fighting these organizations.
Absolutely. And I became a CRPA member. I want to say, like I said, after hearing Tom Gresham talk about it on Gun Talk, that, if you own a gun, join your state organization. I joined up in about 2018, and then I started getting emails saying, hey, CRPA, hey, everyone, it's time to join your local chapter. It's time to sign up for this month's meeting. Yeah. That probably would have been like in 2020. And I see the emails. Okay, there's, Kern County and Tuolumne County and Siskiyou and all these counties. I'm like, there's no Fresno. I'd be willing to drive to Fresno. There's no Tulare, no Kings. There's no one in our area. So like a year of that goes by. And then finally I emailed them. I actually found the email a couple of days ago, going back at my Gmail, where I said, hey, are you guys going to be starting a chapter in my area where I live? And I got a response back from contact person that I referred to before. And enthusiastic was like, well, we're really hoping to, and really hoping we're going to have one there. Just let us know if you're interested. Hint, hint, hint.
Yeah, and there you go.
And I waited, months and months and months. But, that I've never been the person to be like, if someone needs to step up, I'm going to step up, for good or for not. I'm sure my wife wishes I hadn't stood up. But I don't know if we'd have a chapter if I didn't. And somebody, my close circle of friends that are all gun owners, like, hey, I want to start a CRPA chapter. Are you with me? Yeah. Are you with me? Sure. Are you with me? Yep. So that's my co-chair and my secretary and our treasurer.
Well, perfect.
And there we are, right?
Well, I think more and more people need to get in there, because there are some dues, there are funds that go into this. What to be a member? What is it really?
So the annual due to become to be an active member, it's $55 a year. Yeah, that's non-veteran. Veteran, I think it's like $30 a year. It's very affordable. And then you can do 5-year membership, you can do, or 3-year, 1 year, 5 year, you can do lifetime for $1,000. You can also do they call it the $17.91. You pay $17.91 a month in honor of the year that the Second Amendment was ratified.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's I know there's $55 is $55, but think about what you're helping. You're helping to not just keep the lights on. I've been to their headquarters. It is not they're not the NRA. There aren't hundreds of people in these big buildings with fancy jets and fancy suits driving Beamers. No, this is like a grassroots organization employing great people and they told me, they employ lawyers, they employ people trained in business that could be making a whole lot more money elsewhere, but they're there because they're committed to the Second Amendment. The people, when I had my heart attack in 23, I came home from the hospital after spending 40 days in the hospital. That's a story. Yeah. And there's a plant, well, a bunch of plants, but there's a plant on the kitchen table with a card from the CRPA. And I'm like, I told my wife, this is why I love this organization. These are good people.
Right.
And that plant, a year and a half later, it's still there. I take good care of it. They, and they sent cards and And I saw them like months. Oh, Matt, how are you doing? Oh, how have you been? Well, I was praying for you. And I'm like, I feel like I'm at church when I'm talking to people from the CRPA. They're just wonderful souls. So giving your money to the CRPA, you're paying for the salaries of really good people that are doing God's work, if you will, to make sure that people can be legally, lawfully trained and armed and equipped to defend themselves, their homes. I can't recommend them enough.
Well, I mean, they're fighting for our rights.
They are.
They're really for everybody's rights, not just, where are they based out of?
They're in Los Angeles area.
Anything on this side, that side of the grapevine, that's LA.
It'll come up to me in a minute.
I do my best to never go to that side of the grapevine,
I know.
which people outside of California would not understand. But
my wife calls that heart attack brain. It's something that I should know. It just it blinks out of my brain.
we call it COVID brain.
That maybe will cause my heart attack. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. That's but no, we do our best to never go to that side of the grapevine anyway. So that's LA. It's that's a different world, and that doesn't fit our valley by any stretch. And that's where when we talk to people that follow us that are outside of the state, I wish they understood. California's a big state.
It's a big state.
And like what's happening in LA is not what's happening in the Central Valley.
Yeah.
What's happening in the Central Valley is not what's happening in the Bay Area.
Yeah, and that's why these chapters are so helpful, because the CRPA, I've talked to people, they cannot do the work alone. They need volunteers all throughout the state that can. There are a lot of people that have never heard of the CRPA. Here's how my conversation normally goes. Let's say I'm at a gun store, and I'm like, hey, I'm with the local CRPA. What's that? You remember Freedom Week when you were able to buy any mags you want? Oh yeah, CRPA. Once you mention Freedom Week, if they've been into guns for a while, they know what the CRPA is. Hey, do you have a Hellcat? You're welcome. Ruger Max 9? You're welcome. That's the Bolin v. Bonta case. So you can be a gun owner and it's like I'm a teacher, right? Even if you're not in the teachers union, you're a beneficiary of all the advancements made by the union. I'm not being political. I'm just saying that's a matter of fact. So if you're a gun owner in California and you're not a CRPA member, you're welcome, because you benefited from the advancements that they've made.
Well, you're getting more and more guns taken off the banned list, or getting more put on the roster, whatever they want to call it.
Exactly. As long as manufacturers are willing to produce firearms that have a magazine disconnect and a loaded chamber indicator, right? Which SIG had no problem doing, Ruger had no problem doing, Smith & Wesson had no problem doing it. I just wish they all came optics ready. You listening, Springfield? I love those guns of yours, but they need to be optics ready. Give us Californians guns with optics plates. If SIG can have a magazine, if SIG can have a tiny little loaded chamber indicator and have room for a plate, so can you. Everyone can do it.
I like that idea. That would make a lot of sense.
Well, think about your shield. It's got that huge little.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I put a custom slide on that.
Absolutely. That's where, like I said, I was looking at my wife's gun the other day, and even like the Glock. I mean, I love the way they shoot. But the first time we put red dots on, that was pretty cool. Though.
It's amazing.
The first couple magazines were tough.
It's hard. It's like, where is it? I can't see it.
Exactly.
Find your backup sites. Oh, there's the red dot.
Oh, exactly.
No, I went shooting with. I made sure that when I got my custom slide, so it had backup iron sights, and I've got a Holosun EPS carry. So it's basically like an absolute witness, where the red dot is on the front sight. It's like the same thing. And I was in Idaho shooting with a buddy, and the sun was behind me. He's got his still target, so I pull out my shield. I can't find the red dot. Is it on? No, it's on. Okay. Oh wait, I have backup sights. Ding, 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 ding.
Yes.
It took me 10 seconds to remember. That's why I spent all that money and put backup sights on it. Dummy.
Well, it's hence the reason you need to practice.
Yes.
Right there.
Yes, I need more practice.
That was the perfect reasoning right there. You wouldn't have thought about it.
It's a perishable skill, is what they say, right?
Very much
it's
so.
It's all a perishable skill.
And we see that an awful lot. I know, and I've commented on here, I was really bad about not going out and practicing. Boy, I went out and I noticed right away. I'm like, oh, that's not a very good group.
Yeah.
They're all over the place. Like, why am I pulling to the left all of a sudden?
Yeah, it's a perishable skill. Just like knowing the addresses of organizations that you should know. I know that they're on Imperial Highway.
Oh, but like I said, it's no reason to ever go that side.
Yeah, I know.
You left for that. Go see that.
They're so glad to have us up here and kind of the way a CRPA meeting goes. It's once a month, when the emails come out from headquarters, it usually has a link. You click on the link, you can register. That way we know that you're coming. And you don't have to be a CRPA member to come. If you want to just come and check it out. I have a slideshow. I'm a teacher, so I got my slideshow with our agenda of all the things we're going to discuss. But we basically talk about what bills Sacramento's considering, what actions we're going to take against it, and then what and we'll give updates on the lawsuits. We always have food to eat, and at the end we do a fun drawing, for holsters and things and whatnot. But I always try to have something that we're going to do. Like right now, the legislature hasn't really resumed yet full course, so there hasn't been a whole lot for us to talk about. But this last summer or last fall, when it was approaching the end of the legislative session, we do this thing called Phone Warriors. Basically, I go online to the state website and I subscribe, if you will, to all the different bills, Assembly Bill 1160, Senate Bill 2, whatever, all of them. Anytime there's any type of change, I get an email. So for example, say AB 1160 advancing to House Public Safety Committee on June 15th. So then I get on my phone, to my little app, and I text all the people that are phone warriors. Hey, phone warriors, we need to call the Public Safety Committee members. Here are the 8 names and phone numbers. Call them this next week and let them know that you oppose Assembly Bill 1160. And there's usually 4 or 5 bills, and it's 8 phone calls. And the thing is, if you were to call Catherine Blakespear or Scott Wiener or someone who's not your representative, they're going to say, well, please call your local lawmaker.
Right.
But when they're a member of a committee, they have to take your call. They have to record you.
Okay.
Yeah. And
That's actually good to know.
And we had some resistance. What we found is they wanted us to call the local office, like their actual branch office. Some of them wouldn't take the call. It's like, sorry, you need to. It's like, but you're on the committee. Yes, I know. I'm like, but if you called their Sacramento office, it was about 100%. They would take the call. Sometimes I would call both. If I struck out with the local office, I'd call the Sacramento number. That's an easy way to volunteer. It takes 15 minutes. You do it once every couple months, and then that way they've heard from you. If that bill makes it as a law and it gets sued, all of those notes from those committee meetings are there. So there's a record of all the phone calls that came in, to oppose.
That's actually a really good point.
Yeah. So you're basically written. They record your opposition.
I know a lot of times, no matter what we say, it's not going to matter. That doesn't mean anything about call. But it's carrying over. So that's good to know. I didn't realize that.
It does help. And Rick Travis, like I said, he and Sam Predis are there. They're really in the trenches for us. And there were, if you followed this last legislative session, I mentioned AB 1160. That was the one by he's out of a job now, Senator Anthony Portantino, voted out, term limits, bye-bye. Oh, he's the one to thank for Senate Bill 2. But 1160, that was the catastrophic one that would have had mandatory firearms registration. Every gun you've ever owned, even if you're a police officer, antique firearms, no matter what you got, it all had to be registered. And if you didn't register it, they would come and destroy it. It was truly just awful. And Anthony Portantino even told Sam Paredes, hey, wait till you see what I got planned for you. He was basically, neener, I'm coming for you. Which just shows I got to believe the best in people. I'm a teacher. So a lot of our lawmakers really are trying to make the world better and safer. And even when they're proposing these gun laws that we don't like, I got to believe that there's a good heart behind it. But in that case, there was not. He wanted to play the game.
You're nicer than I am.
And I have to be. I am by nature. I just am. I'm a peacekeeper.
Well, as a middle child, we had to be that way.
I'm the oldest.
We had to be the peacekeeper. So
but he very much wanted making life hard for gun owners, but the response to 1160 was so universal. It was just a landslide of opposition. And CRPA, Gun Owners of California, is another organization. Now, GOC, they don't have the chapter system like we do, but if you're going to give, if you want to support people that are in California, CRPA, Gun Owners of California.
Where was he a representative from? Just
Portantino?
Yeah.
Down south somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get really frustrated when I see these congressmen, senators, not so much as senators, I guess, because they're all going to be what they are, but especially congressional districts. We can look at these folks and say, that's a horrible person. But realistically, they could be. But are they representing their district in the way that their district wants them to? A lot of times, yeah. So it's that person, but it's also that district that needs to have. I look at AOC; they keep voting her back in.
Yeah, they must love her.
Yeah,
they must be like-minded.
Yeah, I always looked at. Pelosi, who I think is just ridiculous. Horrible person. But realistically, she probably represented her district in the exact fashion that they wanted it represented. Other than all of her illegal trades that should have made her a billionaire. But other than that, it was
lawmakers should not financially profit from their legislative decisions while they're in Congress. That's
surprising to see Biden say that as he's leaving office. I'm done making money now. Y'all need to stop doing this. That was but that was probably a direct little jab at Pelosi on his way out the door. So, but I think they forget that they're there to represent the Constitution also, not just their crazy liberal district.
Yeah. And our founding fathers, don't forget, they never ever intended a full-time legislature. These were meant to be farmers, landowners, shopkeepers who for part of the year were serving a term in office, and then they went back to their real day job.
Yeah, these
career
people never had a job.
politicians. We don't need career politicians.
No, you should never. It's going to be really hard to ever get term limits pushed through, because how do you get people to vote against their own self-interest? That's always hard.
Well, California did it, but it was a proposition, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, we need that in nationwide. I think there's times I struggle with that one too, because are you taking away the voters' constitutional rights if you say you can't elect the person that I want elected?
Yeah.
But at the same time, no, let's just put a term limit.
Yeah.
You can't be there for 50 years.
Yeah, and that's why Hurtado's out next year. That's why Anthony Portantino's out now. These are people that were dead set against us. That Hurtado she lied to us.
And where was she out of? What was her?
Central Valley.
Exactly. I remember
Central Valley, like Kings County, Hanford, Lemoore. She betrayed. So you talked about constituents. She obviously doesn't know her constituents. She goes up there and she was a turncoat. And I'm sorry, I'm a forgiving Christian type guy, but politically speaking, that's unforgivable what she did, and that's why we're all paying this 11% tax because of her.
Because of her, yeah. Now I've heard the name. I just didn't exactly. Yeah. And with our gerrymandered districts, God only knows where they go.
Who knows?
It's amazing how we can have one that goes all the way. Which this won't mean anything to people outside of the area, but goes from like Lamont all the way up to Visalia, and it's the same district. It's just a long, skinny, little meandering line, which makes not a bit of sense to me. And it was actually put into place just to get certain constituents into that. And it's just flat out wrong.
Yeah. Like my district, it used to be, red, but now they changed it. And now my district is Jim Costa. And he's won the last 2 times. He doesn't win by a huge margin, but.
Right. He's the one I'm kind of surprised has hung around, but he's kind of...
Oh, he's 200 years old. So
right, exactly.
He's going for 300, yeah.
Yeah, and how is he still in office? It just amazes me.
People keep voting for him. Name recognition,
That's it.
They didn't want to go for the new guy, the guy who's half his age.
Yeah, who's going to run against him next time, I wonder? That's
probably the same guy. I wish I could remember his name. He ran against him the last 2 times, so...
Hey, come on, people, wake up.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a way for us to help support that person, we will.
Yeah, and that's the other thing the CRPA does. They do have a legislative PAC, Political Action Committee, for elections. And so they do raise funds, and they run commercials for and against different lawmakers that are running for office. They're one issue. It's just, are they pro-Second Amendment or not? Like, for example, Rudy Salas. He's a Democrat. Oh, Democrats, they don't like guns. Hold on, time out. Rudy Salas is on the A list for the CRPA. So Senate Bill 2 in the previous session was Senate Bill 918. He was a no vote, meaning he just sat back and folded his arms and didn't vote or didn't show up. Because of him and Hurtado at that time, and I think another person, there were 3 Democrats that didn't vote, and that's why Senate Bill 918 didn't go through. So then they brought it back as Senate Bill 2, because each year they had to change the numbers. They brought it back as Senate Bill 2, and then it passed. But Rudy Salas was a friend of the Second Amendment. He still is. So that's the thing, is the CRPA is not choosing Republican over Democrat. They're choosing there are Republicans that may not be that good with the Second Amendment.
That's a pet peeve of mine when people don't vote, though. Damn it, you have one job. Go do your
show or up they and vote or shut up. If you don't vote, you gave your voice to other people. Therefore, now that we have the conversation the morning after, you can sit down. You don't get to talk.
Yeah, present. Present to me should not be allowed.
Oh, you're talking about the lawmakers that
the lawmakers.
Should. I think just people that don't vote.
Oh, no, same thing with people though. But
so lawmakers that don't vote, it's political reasons.
Oh, no, I know it is.
That way he wins points with his Democratic friends, but also helps his constituent. Oh, I didn't vote for it.
But people should pay attention. I see that when you watch a vote up in Washington and you see present, and there's 7 present votes. No, you're not really present then if you're not doing your damn job.
Yeah.
You should be fired. But so what are things that people, as we're coming to a close, what do you want people looking out for right now? What should we be concerned about, aware of as far as laws coming out? I know there's nothing They're not in session, so it's a little harder.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom did his special session, and Catherine Blakespeare thought it would just be so smart just to show up to propose Senate Bill, was it Senate Bill 15?
Senate Bill 15.
Senate Bill 15, and it was just a bookmark bill. It was just a placeholder bill saying, basically, firearms law will be proposed later. It was just her way to put it in there to be the first
And
one.
where's she out of?
Bay Area, I think. At this point, there really aren't any bills that I know of that are on the CRPA's radar at this point. But that's where you want, again, if you want to be actively, even if you're not going to become a paid member of the CRPA, subscribe to CRPA TV. If you follow CRPA TV and enable notifications on YouTube, if something's happening, Kevin Small, he's the guy that kind of runs the whole side of things there, that gets all the media out there and all the publicity out there. And he's a great guy, just a wonderful human being. He runs that. He often will interview Chuck Michelle, who's the president of the CRPA, and also he runs Chuck Michelle and Associates. They're the legal arm of the CRPA. So stay informed. But yeah, that would be the big thing.
Where's Kevin Small out of?
So Kevin Small, he's on the staff of the CRPA, so he's there at the headquarters.
Oh, he's down south. Okay.
In that city down south that I can't think of right now.
Well, we have a Kevin Small here.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, different Kevin Small.
Yeah. Okay.
But subscribe and then get involved on the chapter level. If any of you are listening that are in the south of Fresno, north of Bakersfield, and you want to come check us out, our socials are Tulare-Kings Gun Owners. So Tulare, Tulare. So Tulare-Kings Gun Owners. We're on Facebook and Instagram, mostly on Instagram because Instagram's way cooler than Facebook. And then, but we also have a website. You can look us up at CRPA Tulare-Kings.org. Again, if someone's listening who's local. But if you're like, Matt, I'm in San Jose, how do I connect with my local CRPA chapter in San Diego? Well, there's only one place to go, CRPA.org. Go to the headquarters itself, CRPA.org, and look up chapters, and you can find out which chapter's in your area.
I think that's perfect right there.
Yep.
We'll end it with that. So get onto CRPA.org.
Yep.
Support the member, support the group.
Yep.
And really, you're supporting all the Second Amendment. So that's
exactly
and protecting all of us.
Exactly. And if you're in our area and you are not doing anything, on Saturday, April 26th, our local chapter is putting on a big fundraiser dinner. And so, if you go to our website, CRPA-Tulare-Kings.org, if you're in the area, we'd love to have you.
I did notice that going on the main website.
Yeah.
There's an events page. Go on there. You can see what's going on in your area.
CRPA.org connects you to everything going on in the state, all the gun shows, gun training events, special events, and all the chapters. You need to have the CRPA.org in your bookmarks. For
Perfect.
sure.
Well, I appreciate you coming today. This was great.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Anytime we can do, like I said, push out a little more responsible gun ownership, and the idea of more knowledge, the better.
And Kern County, if you're listening, we need to resurrect the CRPA chapter in Kern County.
Oh, we're definitely going to get that work done. That'll be...
Call me. Look me up. Again, go to our website. I'll be glad to talk you through it and help you to know how you can get things going again.
We'll work on it. Thank you much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Best of all, a 5-star review is much appreciated.